While Mike Gundy's new crew certainly has some positions of strength to lean on early, in order for the Cowboys to make a Big 12 title push, it is imperative that these other position groups explode on the scene at some point in time in the season. Thankfully, I think some of these sleepers can be the catalyst to do just that.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets. If your first $5 hauler is a winner, head on over to FanDuel.com today. Meanwhile, we shift into the conversation of the positions that absolutely need to take a step up that's very visible throughout the course of the season in order for the Cowboys to have some opportunity to make a run at a Big 12 title. I do think that the positions of strength, like linebacker and running back and wide receiver, are going to be more than enough early to get everybody's knowledge built up, to get everybody's understanding of the playbook built up, to get everybody's comfortability with what they're trying to accomplish on the field. It's going to take a little bit of time because the complexity in both the new offense and the new defense is going to take time, right? But I do think that you can lean on the Rodney Fields and the Caleb Hicks and the Trent Howlands and the Io Shotomai Kings of the world while you're kind of figuring that out. And then defensively, when you have somebody like Brian McCoy coming over from Akron, that could be a vocal leader of the defense that could help that linebacker core, who also has DeLille Johnson and Chendavian Bradley and Malik Charles and Brandon Rawls. Like, there's just so much talent that I think that those spots are going to be able to help guide Oklahoma State early. But we have to have an explosion that is visible for us to make a run at the Big 12 title. And everybody knows, more often than not, your success is predicated upon your quarterback play. Obviously, Oklahoma State enters fall camp at somewhat of standstill to some degree because we don't know exactly who QB1 is going to be. I do buy into the belief that the J.W. Walsh, Clint Self dual system could work, even though that was some degree by injury. Some of it was purposeful, and I think we can find some of that in Stillwater this season. You have Zane Flores, who's been chomping at the bit to have his opportunity and likely would have got it last year if it not been for that foot heel injury. And then you have a Hauss Hejny coming over with some familiarity from the Doug Meacham style systems at TCU. So some of the things that Doug Meacham is going to be asked of the quarterbacks and of the wide receivers are going to be something that Hauss Hejny understands. And then behind them, because it's not just about the guys who are going to be on the field on Saturdays, you have to have development. You have to have a good scout team. You have to have dudes that give you a good look throughout the course of the week in order to prepare you to be ready to win on Saturday. I think whenever you look at Banks Bond and Mason Schubert, both of these individuals have the capability to help us prolong the season and add to the development. Regardless of who wins that quarterback one battle, Hauss Hejny is going to have an integral piece in this offense. So I think that's kind of a moot point. The development at quarterback, however, regardless of who ends up grabbing the position or if we do the dual quarterback system throughout the entirety of the year, you have to see some developmental aspects to give glimpses of what the Cowboys could look like at the end of the season. Thankfully, we kept Zane Flores for a reason. And I feel like that Garrett Rangel or Malachi Smith, both of those individuals, in the eyes of the coaches, were like going to give us 7-8 wins, potentially. But they do view the potential of Zane Flores and Hauss Hejny is significantly higher than that. So this is going to be a season where we need to see that. Is this going to finally be the emergence of the Zane train? I feel like we all kind of sense it. Now we just need to be able to see it on the field. Additionally, outside of the quarterback position, the next position that I deem or see as imperative to the success of the season is the cornerback room, right? Corey Black was a pretty good, pretty serviceable corner. But I do think that there's areas in his game that we can see improvements on. And then you have Cam Smith coming back, clearly being a Big 12 Media Day, shows his leadership presence. And 6 foot, 205-pound cornerback is definitely something that you like to see. You also have Cale Smith back there. You have Carrington Pierce coming in, Jacoby Oliphant, J.K. Johnson, Kenneth Harris, Raymond Gay II, Drayden Fulbright, Kobe Foreman, Eric Fletcher, LaDainian Fields, and Jalen Davies. If Jalen Davies can get back to just what he was doing this previous season at UCLA, that is going to be, worst case scenario, an even component for losing Corey Black. If you can get what J.K. Johnson did at Ohio State and his first year at LSU, if you can get that back in Stillwater, Oklahoma, then you've got a phenomenal combo to go alongside Cam Smith. I think another individual that doesn't get talked about enough is definitely going to be LaDainian Fields. LaDainian Fields has 10.5 100-meter speed, which means he has sub 4.4 40-meter speed. We just need to see it on the field a little bit more. We did see portions of him this previous season, and now he's rocking a new number 9. It's going to be exciting to see what LaDainian can do. I think whenever you look at the senior leadership of Kenneth Harris and Raymond Gay II, that's going to be big for this season. Those are individuals that one has been here for a long time in Raymond Gay and one that has been in multiple systems now at multiple universities that is going to be able to help these transfers understand the lay of the land in Stillwater. This is a position group that if we get better at, the season could go quite remarkable, because getting beat up in the back end of the defense last year was a big Achilles heel. And more often than not, some of our DBs had a tendency to get into hand fights as opposed to putting themselves in position to make big plays. This group athletically seems like an upgrade, hopefully, throughout the course of the season, that is very visible on field. Another position group that I think all of us can agree, if you don't get the most out of, especially whenever you're trying to break in this multiple quarterback system, or if you're trying to find a way to separate these quarterbacks, the tight end. That's almost every quarterback's best friend, especially mobile quarterbacks, because you do give yourself the opportunity to extend plays. And obviously when you're extending plays, your wide receivers and everybody who's breaking back to the ball, and the tight end is just a big old target. So if you have a tight end breaking back to the ball in a scramble drill, that's a pretty good opportunity for the quarterback to have a trusty security blanket. Obviously, we have Grayson Brousseau that just came over from Utah State at 6'5", 240. The returning, after starting as a true freshman, Josh Ford from Stillwater, Oklahoma, 6'6", 265. Then you have the Collinsville, Oklahoma native from North Texas, Oscar Hammond. Then you have Will Money coming over from Utah State. You have the veteran, 6'3", 250, Quentin Stewart. And then you have Carton Suesu coming over from BYU, Jordan Viborni, a big-time tight end grab that realistically, if he would have not have torn his ACL, it would have been difficult for Oklahoma State to retain the services of him, in my personal opinion, because that injury is what allowed the USCs of the world to kind of back off a little bit. Thankfully, Oklahoma State stayed true to Jordan Viborni. And with this many tight ends, I think it does indicate that is the objective here. The objective here is to utilize the tight ends much more than we almost ever have before. I mean, you can go back to the Blake Jarwin years, even before that, Brendan Pettigrew style of years. That works out perfect. So if we're looking for the development of the quarterback as the season progresses, I do feel like that the development in the tight end room is going to go hand in hand with that. So if the tight end room is significantly better, or we're capable of utilizing the tight end to a much higher degree, then I do think that definitely benefits the quarterback position. And then naturally, on the defensive side of the ball, when you're 126th in the country and defensive categories, 124th, 131st, whatever the case may be, you do have to take more chances. You have to be a little bit more aggressive. That is Todd Grantham's cup of taters. And lastly, we have Jules Montanaro. I think Jules Montanaro might be the sneakiest get of all the coaches and the staff that we've been able to assemble in this new age version of Cowboy football. Jules Montanaro is likely to have that group of dudes rocking and rolling fairly quickly. So those are the positions that we need to see big upticks as the season progresses. Does that mean they have to start week 1 gangbusters? No. But by week 5, week 6, week 7, for the Cowboys to make a run, we have the positions of strength. Now we need these positions to take off at some point in time in the season. Speaking of taking off, FanDuel can allow you to do just that with your bank account. The summer sports are here. They're in full swing. And whether you're all about the 9 innings for baseball, you're all about chipping in for par on the golf course, or high-stakes soccer action, whatever it is, FanDuel is the best way to make all of the games more exciting. If you're ready to follow the action even heavier, this is your time. FanDuel is the opportunity to make it more thrilling. You can do all of the fun stuff while your friends are out there getting sunburnt. FanDuel is going to help you track all of your favorable matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with daily new promotions and fun ways to keep the betting fresh. It is easy to use, they have super fast payouts, and they make even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are part of the action the entire time. If you're new to FanDuel, that's perfect because new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet is a winner. So get squared away today. Open your FanDuel app or head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. It is the bee's knees for all of your ticketing needs. From FanDuel to the sleepers of the team. So we've covered the positions of strength. We've covered the positions that need to explode on the scene at some point in time in the season. But I think some of these sleeper picks might be the catalyst to help that happen. Largely because we have like 65, 64 new players. So a lot of these names are going to be unfamiliar to Cowboys in the stands and Cowboys watching the game. Whenever you look at the offensive line, they had some woes this previous season. They had some difficulties, of course. I think Markel Samuel, the 6'4", 305-pound transfer coming over from Appalachian State, I don't know that he's going to be solidified at tackle per se. Obviously, at that level, different story. So we'll see what position he actually shakes out to. But regardless, I do think from a transfer perspective, whenever you get somebody like that to be a bookend of your offensive line that was sought after by several SEC and Big Ten schools, that's huge for an Oklahoma State group that just saw a lot of returning offensive linemen, unfortunately, regress from the previous Doak Walker, Ollie Gordon season. Markel Samuel is a massive addition out of the transfer portal, and I expect him to be a major piece of this offense moving forward. But who helps most with your offensive lineman? Well, probably the quarterback to some degree. And I think out of all of the quarterbacks that we've discussed, I've been insanely excited to see Hauss Hejny. I like the prospect of Banks Bowen because I don't think he's your traditional run-of-the-mill third-string quarterback. But it does feel like the Zane train is building. It does definitely feel like that the Cowboy coaching staff wants that next step of Zane to happen. The Cowboy coaching staff clearly believes that Zane Flores is the future alongside Hauss Hejny, whatever iteration they decide to roll out. But I think Zane is the sleeper of this crew because if he does get to the level the coaches clearly think he can get to, then you're having a differentiation between a Rangel 8-win season and a Zane Flores 11-win season. At running back, I think we know what Rodney Fields Jr. could be. I do think that Trent Allen provides not only a veteran leadership, but that Chris Carson level dude, goal line, short yardage situations, moments in the games where you just have to have a reliable source to hang on to the ball. Trent Allen's going to do all that. But the dude who showed the most flashes in the spring that caught the biggest surprises, it's got to be Caleb Hicks. The OU transfer was somebody in the springtime that very visibly looked like he was going to be a huge part of this offense. Is he going to have to work his way up the depth chart? Absolutely. But I do think that at some point in time in the season, you're going to see this young man take off. And Sessi Valahi is not completely out of this thing as well. I mean, when you think of Sessi, he likely had opportunities in the portal. So him sticking around, to me, indicates that he plans on being part of this offense. But Caleb Hicks just seems to provide a lot of electricity with a little bit of that run you over capability as well. We just talked about the best friend for the quarterback, likely the tight end, when your quarterbacks are of the mobile variety. And of all the tight ends that we discussed and all the new tight ends that we have, the one is most intriguing to me is Carson Suesu. Obviously went to BYU early, came to Oklahoma State, so he has tons of eligibility left. And the dude was a quarterback in high school, throwing for 3,295 yards, 33 touchdowns, while also rushing for almost 800 yards on the ground. He chose BYU and then eventually Oklahoma State over Tennessee, Arizona State, Utah, Pitt, and many others. he's a massive addition. Athletically speaking, I think he can do some things that even Josh Ford can't even do. So if he has a maturation process, if he's able to rock and roll in the body by glass system, I think the upside of Carson Suesu is potentially NFL levels. Outside of that, we got to go inside. We covered offensive tackle, Markel Samuel being that sleeper pick that could help guide this offensive line. Next to him, I think it's got to be Noah McKinney. Noah McKinney and Jason Queso-Brooks were the two offensive linemen that both PFF grading and visibly on film should have been starting, point blank, period. So now, whenever he gets 100% healthy, I don't know how close he is, but he's got to be getting fairly close to that being back in action mold. If he can get there, he got robbed of opportunities last season, and I can't wait for him to explode on the scene this year and show everybody that he should have definitely been starting last year at guard over a couple of individuals. Next to him, Kason Carpenter, the Tulsa transfer that has multiple years of eligibility remaining, 6'3", 305 pounds. You have to have that as a quarterback, the trust in the center, because he's not just the dude snapping the ball. He's the dude that's helping with protections and helping identify some of the stuff in the linebackers and what the shifts could potentially be and who's creeping up. So the center, from a communication standpoint, does far more than all of the other offensive linemen and does a ton for the quarterback. So if you have young quarterbacks that are trying to get themselves solidified, having a good center for communication purposes and protection purposes is going to be absolutely massive. Thankfully, he's already done that, and he's upgraded from Tulsa to Oklahoma State. I expect big things out of Kason Carpenter this season. Going over the other side of the line of scrimmage, just across the defensive tackle spot. Coming into the season, I was very excited about Michael Diata, the Virginia transfer, but for whatever reason, it appears as though he's kind of taking a little bit of a back seat. So the dude stepping up to take that position that is new to the squad, to me, has got to be DeMarion Thomas. The Vandy transfer coming in at 6'2", 342 pounds, makes him the biggest defensive tackle that we have. It would have been nice to have some of that Justin Kirkland tutelage a little bit longer for DeMarion Thomas. Nonetheless, he's a big body beast that should be able to bang down low enough to give the guys in the back end more opportunities and open up more room for the defensive ends to get in on the statistical categories, because it didn't happen a lot this previous season. I think DeMarion Thomas, with his size and his understanding of what to do in the playbook system and leverage, could be huge for Oklahoma State this season. I expect him to develop as the season progresses. Right outside of him, we just talked about how the big body beasts down low need to take up more room, fill up more double teams, eat up more space to allow the guys on the back end, preferably the defensive ends and outside linebackers, to make more plays. That next dude to me has got to be Kyron Duhan. Kyron Duhan, obviously coming over from UTEP, was a very big addition, another individual that had a lot of SEC, Big Ten, ACC interest that Oklahoma State was able to squeeze in there and get him relatively early in the transfer portal process. He was a freshman, NCAA All-American this previous year with 43 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. We expect big things out of Kyron Duhan coming up this season. Outside of him, again, setting up more opportunities. I went back and forth on this one. Malik Charles is interesting. Brandon Rawls is interesting. Brian McCoy should be much like what we just watched out of Nick Martin. But I cannot get over the ceiling of Chandavian Bradley. If we're going to talk about the ceiling of Zane Flores, then we have to talk about the ceiling of Chandavian Bradley. Not just because he was a former 5-star All-American that went to Tennessee, but because of his film. When you pop it on, what he does is pretty incredible stuff. He doesn't move like a linebacker. He doesn't move like a defensive end. And maybe that tweener status was precisely what caused him issues at Tennessee and not being able to gain the weight, whatever. Congratulations, Hutchinson, community college. They put the weight on him that Tennessee was struggling to do. And now you're seeing a little bit of a different version of Chandavian Bradley. To me, Chandavian Bradley on film is a significantly bigger version of Calvin Bundage. Now, there's a lot of talent at the linebacker position, and it being a position of strength likely entering the season. I don't know that he'll be a tried and true all-day, everyday starter per se. He might be a package guy, much like Chandavian or much like Calvin Bundage was at some points in time in his career, much like Trace Ford was, and even to some degree, much like Colin Oliver was. I think Chandavian Bradley can fill that void. Maybe he only gets 20, 25 snaps a game, but those 20, 25 snaps are going to be full out, full speed, you know what, to the wall, trying to rip heads off in the backfield, and he can cover the flats, and he can get up down the seam. So it's not like very many tight ends are going to be able to run away from him. I'm insanely excited about Shadavian Bradley, not to mention this previous season, he only played in 6 games, helping Hutchinson get to a national championship and win the national championship. And in that 6 games, he had 26 tackles, a sack, and 6 tackles for loss. So in limited snaps, limited moments, limited minutes, he did big things, and he put on a pretty significant amount of weight. I expect Rob Glass to bring another layer out of Shadavian Bradley and Stillwater. Right next to him, how about Darius Thomas? He's not getting talked about enough. The 6'2", 215-pound transfer from Western Kentucky to Louisville, right? Western Kentucky did a lot of amazing things, goes to Louisville and decides, actually, I'm going to go to Oklahoma State instead. Could move because his 2 years at Western Kentucky before transferring to Louisville, he had 63 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, an interception that he also returned for a 42-yard touchdown. He caused a fumble. He returned a fumble. He was all over the field. He was a very disruptive force. We just had a disruptive force in Trey Rucker. I do think that Darius Thomas could be somebody that kind of fills that Trey Rucker style of void for Oklahoma State this season. And he's not even a safety. I think that's one of the beneficial parts of this. When we have the speed, we have the athleticism, I think the toughness is going to come to match pretty quickly. Speaking of safety, so we have somebody like Darius Thomas who's kind of silently making a name for himself pretty early on in Stillwater. Another individual doing the same thing is Zaquan Patterson, the 6', 200-pound cornerback / DB / safety transfer. He played in 12 games last year at Miami. And statistically, maybe it doesn't wow you, right? 20 tackles. But playing in 12 games as a true freshman at Miami, that's pretty impressive. And even more impressive is when his Miami coach comes out after the season and says Zaquan Patterson is the best tackling freshman in all of the ACC and maybe in the country. Early on in Stillwater, he's kind of showing why his coach said that. This is an individual that is going to be a long-time starter in Stillwater, Oklahoma with an NFL future. It's going to be exciting to see him put it on the field this season. Another individual that's been talked about quite a bit, not only through this 7-on-7 aspects, but obviously as we're about to begin fall, is cornerback Eric Fletcher. Eric Fletcher comes over. He is Hauss Hejny Fast. He's a regional championship winner in track and field. He went to Dunbar High School, has a 4.440, and he caught 75 receptions for 1,193 yards in high school with 19 touchdowns. He also had 173 return yards and 80 rushing yards, 16 tackles and interceptions. So he did get in on the defensive statistics, but Eric Fletcher was a tried and true wide receiver at a Dunbar High School in Texas, which is a factory for wide receivers. So for Eric Fletcher to have almost 1,200 yards receiving and almost 20 touchdowns, for him to make that conversion from wide receiver to cornerback is one of the biggest reasons I'm excited. He's not going to view things from a cornerback perspective. He just so happens to have the ability to cover anybody and knock your head around a little bit too. And then lastly, special teams. How do we not talk more about Gabe Pinikowski? He won the Fred Mitchell Award, which is like the Heisman Kicker Award. He went 44 for 47 on PATs at perfect, 15 for 15 on field goals, including multiple game winners and 2 50-plus yarders. And then the tackling aspect of special teams, it's got to be Gunnar Wilson for me. 6'2", 221 pounds, was running a sub-10 700-meter in high school while he was playing quarterback and tight end and running back and safe. He's played everything. He's only really been playing linebacker for 2 years. Count it up, 2 years. He's going to be able to shine this year on special teams, and he's going to be the Parker Robertson of this crew, flying down the field, making violent stuff happen. I expect Gunnar Wilson to give us some turnovers, some glimpses of fun this season. That's for sure. Oklahoma State also is looking at this N.I.L. era, which currently we're doing pretty good. Now, naturally, a lot of the players did get a fairly healthy sum from the original NIL packaging. And then recently they did kind of redo that. So there is going to be some things spread out, and there's going to be like instances throughout the season where they get basically bonuses when the season starts, halfway through, at the end of the year, so on and so forth. So they're going to get their money as the season goes, as opposed to the big amounts that, they assigned for before the new rev share era. So they all got a big pre-rev share check, and then they had to kind of reestablish the numbers during the rev share. But nonetheless, we're still far more competitive than I ever thought we would be. Financially, we're keeping pace with the heavy hitters in the Big 12. So the question is, how long can Oklahoma State sustain this? Because, the NCAA and the new CCC, third-party governing body, whatever, they don't know what they're doing. They can't make their mind up. And now it's like fair market, but then it was going to be monitored a little bit differently. So I don't know that we still fully understand what NIL is going to look like, who makes the determination on what fair market value is. But regardless, it does appear as though Oklahoma State doesn't have the Boone Pickens, and they may have had a couple more of those old school, big money, heavy hitters. They're kind of, they're up there in age. So we had to have somebody fill the power vacuum. We've heard grumblings, going back to the Board of Regents stuff and to the Casey Shrum stuff, and obviously the Chris Young tennis coach stuff, that the puppet master, the one pulling most of the strings, is Ross McKnight. So evidently, Ross McKnight is the new Boone Pickens. So I think it's fair that we have an understanding of who Mr. Ross McKnight is. And, he's been a big part of Oklahoma State for a number of years. He's been able to help basically raise billions of dollars for Oklahoma State, branding for success and all of that. He was huge in that. He did have a hand in the original Boone Pickens $365 million to the stadium stuff. He's been massive in raising money for some of the sororities, fraternity, things of that nature, all around campus. His wife is extremely involved as well. He's got friends, very close friends, and essentially like family members to some degree on the Board of Regents. So he does carry a big name. He carries a lot of weight. And from a financial perspective, he's able to raise tons and tons of money. Naturally, he's very well off financially himself, and he appears to be the dude that has kind of grabbed that power vacuum struggle from Boone Pickens' departure from the earth to the heavens up top. Ross McKnight seems to be that dude. But the question is he that dude that is big enough to be a Boone? Is he big enough or have the ability to raise enough money to keep us with Boone-level expectations, Boone-level facilities, Boone-level NIL? I think all of us could agree that if Boone was still rocking and rolling right now, our NIL collective would be very comparable to Texas Tech, if not above Texas Tech's. So the question is, if Ross McKnight is that new dude, and it seems as though all the dots connect to him being the guy that is pulling the strings and making things happen. He's the mover. He's the shaker. Is he going to move and shake enough to keep Oklahoma State at the forefront of the NIL conversations, getting all of these dudes from LSU and Ohio State and Florida and whatever in the portal market this season? It's fun. It's exciting. It's new. But is it going to be enough? Because if there's rev share and NILs, and you can go back to spending $40 million, essentially, you have to distribute 20.5, but you can also have another 20 hanging out there. Can Oklahoma State survive long enough with the services of Ross McKnight being the one to kind of be the new Boone? Let me know down in the comment section your thoughts on today's stuff. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike it if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. So go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, my taters.